Today we shall discuss about a terminology known as electric flux. What is meant by flux? The word flux stands for flow. Okay? So the word flux stands for flow. Flow of what? Say for example, water flux we say. Then it means that flow of water. Similarly, here we have electric flux. Then what is meant by electric flux? Flow of electricity? No, not like that. Here, electric flux, to know about it, first I am going to consider certain number of electric lines of force. Look here. Initially, certain number of lines of force are there. Electric lines of force, remember, it's an uniform electric field because all electric lines of force are parallel to each other. Then, in this electric field region, I am going to now imagine two areas. Area of any shape. Say for example, I am going to consider one circular area like this. Okay. Now through this circular area, how many lines of force are passing? Look here. Through this circular area, how many lines of force are passing? Totally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 electric lines of force are there. Out of 7, through this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines are said to be passing. Okay. This number of lines of force that passes through an imaginary area. I have considered area like this and I have kept the area like this perpendicular to the electric lines of force. But only thing is I have taken circular area. Instead of circular shaped area, you can also consider square shaped area like this. Square or rectangular shaped area like this. Okay. Now if you consider one rectangular shaped area like this, now through this area, how many lines of force are passing? Through this area now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 lines are said to be passing. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. What does it indicate? If the size of the area or if the shape of the area changes, then the number of lines of force passing through it will also change. As a result of that, through this area we have 5 lines, whereas through this area we have only 4 lines. Line number 1 and line number 7 are out of these two areas. Understand? Even for this area, line number 6 is also out. So we have to understand that if you want to define electric flux, one factor is very important. What is that factor? Area through which the lines of force are passing. Then, what's the definition of electric flux now? See, it is defined as, this is one factor which is important to know about electric flux. Electric flux is defined as number of electric line of force. Electric line of force passing through the given area. So, passing through the given area. Given area kept in the electric field. Kept in the electric field region. Okay. Then, according to the definition, can you say that the number of since the number of electric lines of force passing through this area, circular area, are phi, then can I say like this, the flux through this area is equal to phi. And what is the number of lines of force passing through this area? It is only 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So can I say that flux through this area is equal to 4, whereas flux through this area is equal to phi? No. For definition purpose, we say that number of electric lines of force passing, but we cannot find the magnitude of the electric flux just simply by counting the total number of lines. We have the other method of finding the electric flux mathematically. So, I write one equation. Electric flux is represented by the symbol phi, not by phi. Phi equal to is given by E, electric field E, uniform electric field E. Okay. Now, if I consider this area as equal to entire circular area as dA, or I can also consider this as ds. To represent this as a small area, I am going to consider the magnitude of the area as delta A or delta S. Either you can use S or A to represent the area. Once again, delta represents here small quantity. That means small area we have chosen. Phi equal to E into delta S. Then I am going to include one angle also, along with one trigonometric function cos theta. Because if the position or the orientation of the area changes, then the number of lines of force passing through that area will also change. This we have seen already in our previous lecturing. So, cos theta. Then what is theta here? Theta is the angle between the area vector drawn to the area and the direction of electric field. Now to this area, I am going to draw the area vector like this. This is area vector. Delta S I write this as area vector. Usually area vector direction, how it will be? It will be always perpendicular to the surface area directed outwards. If this is the circular area, then to this area I have drawn the perpendicular outwards, which represents area vector. So the angle between area vector delta S and E, in this case, it is equal to 0. Okay. Suppose if I consider like this. So this is nothing but electric field line. Now I consider area like this. So this is nothing but area. What's the difference between this and this? Here area is kept, plane of the area is kept perpendicular to the electric field lines. Here plane of the area is kept inclined like this. That means if I draw one area vector, so this gives the direction of area vector delta S. So if delta S represents the area vector, then if E is the electric field, now what is the angle between this electric field and the area vector? It is nothing but theta. Okay. So in order to find the electric flux, we have to consider certain things. Here E remains to be constant. This parameter remains to be constant. But area may change. We can change the magnitude of the area. But what is important here? The angle theta is also important. So Whenever you want to find the electric flux, since I have chosen small area, I represent this electric flux by delta phi. If the area is small, flux is also small. So, theta is going to decide the magnitude of the electric flux, and the area is also going to decide the magnitude of the electric flux. So, this is the equation generally used to find the flux through any surface. We should not find the electric flux just by counting how many lines of force are passing through that area. Mathematically, it should be determined like this. Find out the angle between the direction of electric field and the area vector. Then, if angle changes, flux through that area also changes. You look into this figure here. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines are said to be passing. Whereas, in this figure, look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost nearly 5 lines. I can consider like this. Nearly 5 lines are said to be passing. What is the reason? Here area is kept like this. Here area is kept inclined like this. So, flux through this area is given by this equation. Suppose if I consider, or if I rotate the area like this. So, I made the area completely horizontal like this. This is nothing but area vector delta S. So, this is nothing but electric field. Okay. What is the angle between the direction of electric field and the area vector? Here it is 90 degree. Here it is theta. In this case, the angle between the area vector, either you consider this area or this area. In both the cases, the angle remains to be 0. In this case, what the flux means? The flux through this area, mathematically, delta phi equal to E into delta S into cos 90 degree. So, that means E into delta S cos 90 is 0. If cos 90 is 0, then the flux through this area is also 0. That means no electric lines of force are passing through the area. Simply the electric lines of force are grazing the area. In such a case, you cannot define the electric flux because mathematically it turns out to be equal to 0. Some lines has to pass through the area. It may be exactly vertical or it may be inclined to the direction of electric field. If it is exactly horizontal, then the flux through that area becomes equal to 0. If I apply the same condition to this figure, in this case, what is theta? Theta is equal to 0, or else let us write one more figure. So, this is nothing but the electric field, uniform electric field. Then area vector, this is how the direction of area vector will be. Then in this case, delta S and E are found to be parallel to each other. Then what happens now? Flux through this area now. Flux through this area according to this equation, it is given by delta phi equal to E into delta S into cos 0. So, which will be equal to E into delta S. This is the flux through this area. So, the amount of flux is changing. You look into this equation and also this equation. So, why the flux changes? Amount of flux changes? It all depends upon the orientation of the area. That means the angle in which the surface area or area vector makes with the direction of electric field. If that changes, flux changes. If the magnitude of area changes, then flux also changes. Flux is a scalar quantity. Remember, electric field is a vector. Area vector, this is the magnitude of area vector. Okay. So, this can also be considered as vector quantity. If I consider these two as vector quantity, here I have written only the magnitude of electric field as E, magnitude of area vector as delta S. So, if I consider these two, then how can I write this in the form of vector? Though flux is a scalar, it is a scalar quantity. So, since both are vector, I can write this as E dot delta S. That means dot product of electric field and area vector is going to give us the electric flux. Then how do you find the unit of this flux? What is the unit of electric field? Volt per meter or Newton per coulomb? Okay, what is the unit of area? Unit of area is meter square. So I can rewrite like this: Newton per coulomb meter square or Newton meter square per coulomb. That's the SI unit of the electric flux. Okay. Now we shall study about one of the theorem known as Gauss theorem with respect to electric charges, because we come across one more Gauss theorem or Gauss law with respect to magnetism. That means with respect to magnetic field. Here it is with respect to electric field. Once again, I consider uniform electric field. In this uniform electric field, now I am going to imagine one small area, circular area. I already told you that any shaped area can be considered. Here I am making use of one circular area. On this circular area or circular surface, I am going to imagine one more small area element whose magnitude is delta S. That means only the magnitude of this much of area is equal to delta S. Now, what is the statement of Gauss theorem? Before going to the statement of Gauss theorem, let us now know what is the electric flux through this elemental area delta S. It is given by phi equal to delta phi equal to E into delta S into cos theta. This is the magnitude of electric flux only through this area. But in this case, what is theta? Theta is nothing but the angle between the direction of electric field and the area vector. Now to this entire area, I am going to draw one area vector like this. Let this be delta S area vector. So the direction of area vector and the electric field are parallel. Both are like this. This is electric field direction and this is area vector direction. Both are along the same line and in the same direction. Therefore, theta is equal to 0 degree. If that is the case, then what is the flux? Delta phi equal to E into delta S into cos 0. That means E into delta S. This is the flux through this surface. Now I want to find the electric flux through this entire surface. So what I do? I am going to consider or I am going to imagine this a large area into number of small areas like this. Okay. So if I imagine this into number of small areas like this, then what will be the flux through this area? Once again, E into delta S. What is the flux through this area? E into delta S. Flux through this area, E into delta S. Again flux through this area, E into delta S. So what the total flux means? Total flux through the entire area is given by phi equal to, what can I do? I can add the flux due to all small elemental areas. What's the magnitude of each area? Magnitude of this area should be delta S. Magnitude of this area should be also equal to delta S. All small area possess the same magnitude delta S. So flux through each of the small area remains to be once again same, E into delta S only. So if I want to find the total flux, add it up. What can I do now? Delta phi plus delta phi plus delta phi plus 1. This will be the total flux. Instead of adding, what can I do? I can integrate this. Integral of delta phi. That means total up all the delta phi's. If I total up all the delta phi, and this is taken over a closed surface. Remember, this is nothing but a closed surface. Okay. Then phi equal to delta phi. This can be written as integral of what is delta phi? E into delta S. We know that electric field is constant. So what I do means I take this outside. If I take this outside, then I can write this like this. Phi equal to E integral of delta S. Delta S is small area. Integral of delta S means total area of all this. Okay, entire total area. So, since each elemental area remains to be same, what can I write for integral of delta S? I can write this as simply S. If I replace delta S, instead of writing this in this form, I can also write like this, E into delta A. That means area can be represented either by delta S or by delta A. So if I represent this by delta A instead of delta S, then E into delta A, integral of delta A becomes A. So this is the electric flux through this entire surface. Okay, this is one way of approaching at the total flux coming out through this area by making use of flux equation. What about this? You can notice here the field is uniform. Remember, this is uniform field, whereas here electric field is non-uniform, because we know that a point charge Q always produces non-uniform electric field. How can you say like that? Because electric lines of force are radial. They are found to be diverging. If that's the case, then the field around this charge remains to be non-uniform. Moreover, what is the electric field at this point? The electric field at this point is E. I cannot call this as E, I call this as E1. Because look into this distance, this distance, this distance. These distances are not one and the same. Since these distances are changing, all these distances are changing, I can say that electric field at this point is E1 and electric field at this point is E2, at this point it is E3. And I have taken one surface. Here I have taken one regular surface which is of circular shape. But here I am considering irregular shaped surface. Now, let us find out the flux, electric flux at this point, at this point, at this point. In order to find the flux, what I do means, here I am going to consider one small area. Look here, small area I consider. What is this area? This area is delta A. Now I use delta A instead of delta S. What is the area vector now? If you want to find the area vector, all that you have to do is, you have to draw one perpendicular to this area. Look here. This is the perpendicular. This is area vector. What is the angle between the electric field direction and area vector here? Theta 1. Once again at this point, I am going to consider now one small area. Okay. Now, small area whose magnitude is once again delta A. Now I represent this in the form of area vector. Suppose if I draw one perpendicular to this area, here the area is like this. If you imagine this as the area, now this direction gives area vector. Here if you imagine this as the area, draw one perpendicular, this gives the area vector. So delta S. What is this angle now? Let us call this angle as theta 2. Come to this point. Again I imagine one more area of magnitude delta S. I draw one area vector. This is area vector delta S. Okay. Then what's the angle between these two? Theta 3. Now, suppose if I want to find the total flux coming out from this electric charge, then what is the total flux coming out from this electric charge through this entire surface? Means, first I write the flux through this area. What is the flux through this area? delta phi 1 equal to E1 into delta S into cos theta 1. Remember, angles are changing and electric field is also changing. Angles are theta 1, theta 2, theta 3. Electric field E1, E2 and E3. But area vector magnitude remains to be same. Delta A, here I write delta A, and once again let us use delta A in small correction. So delta A, delta A, delta A, the magnitude of area vector that remains to be same. Only thing is angles are changing, theta 1, theta 2, theta 3 and fields are changing. Then what is the flux through this area now? Delta phi 2 is equal to E2 delta S cos theta 2. Then what is the flux through this area? Delta phi 3 equal to E3 delta S into cos theta 3. Let us use A, delta A, delta A, delta A. Then what's the total flux from this entire surface? So through this entire surface, if I want to find the total flux, what I do? Phi equal to, look here, I can write like this, delta phi 1 plus delta phi 2 plus delta phi 3 plus so on. Instead of writing like this, I can also write like this, total flux. This is total flux coming out from the entire surface due to the charge q. So phi equal to, instead of summing up like this, I can write integral of delta phi. What is the general equation of delta phi? The general equation of delta phi is E into delta A into cos theta. Phi equal to E into delta A into cos theta. What's the difference between this equation and as well as this equation? So this one. This is the equation obtained for electric flux through an area of regular shape and for uniform field. This is an equation of flux obtained for electric field which is non-uniform and also for irregular shaped surface. That is the difference. This equation, I retain this as it is, and this is for flux due to non-uniform electric field. Okay, whereas this is nothing but flux due to uniform electric field. So this is nothing but total flux due to uniform electric field. This is nothing but total flux due to non-uniform electric field. Suppose if I consider one closed surface either of regular shape or of irregular shape, inside which I am going to consider a charge Q. Okay. What does now Gauss theorem states? Gauss theorem states that the total electric flux over this entire surface, total electric flux through this entire surface, Q is the charge, is, let us write the statement, total electric flux. Remember, electric flux is nothing but the quantity which determines the electric field. Total electric flux over a closed surface is equal to closed surface enclosing the charges inside it. Enclosing the charges inside it is equal to 1 over epsilon naught times the total charge. This is the statement of the Gauss theorem. So let us put it in a mathematical form. What is the mathematical form of this equation now? Suppose due to this charge, now what's the electric field? Electric field will be like this, found to be non-uniform. Already we understood about this just now. Okay, So this is nothing but electric field E1, E2, E3. Why the electric field magnitudes are different? Because this distance is not constant and the field is non-uniform. So according to this statement, I can write the equation in the mathematical form, that is total flux is phi, it should be equal to 1 over epsilon times the total charge. What the total charge enclosed inside this closed surface? So this is closed surface. It is nothing but Q only. So Q is the total charge. So whatever flux that comes out from this entire surface, that total flux must be equal to 1 over epsilon naught times. What is epsilon naught? It is nothing but absolute permittivity of free space, because we have kept this charge in free space, remember. So the charge is kept in free space, therefore I make use of the word epsilon naught. Okay. So this is the mathematical form of the Gauss theorem. But suppose instead of one charge kept enclosed inside this closed surface, if there are too many charges like this, say for example Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, okay, Q4, Q5 like this, then in such a case, when there are multiple charges, what will be the statement? The statement remains to be same. In this case, first you find out the total charge, because in the statement what do we say, that total electric flux over a closed surface enclosing the charges inside it means inside the surface, is equal to 1 over epsilon times the total charge. Okay, first find out the total charge. What is the total charge now in this case? So total charge is given by Q equal to, look here, Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3, Q3 is minus, then plus Q4, Q5 is minus, plus of minus Q5. This is the total charge. Then according to the theorem, phi should be equal to 1 over epsilon times the total charge, means Q1 plus Q2 minus Q3 plus Q4 and minus Q5. So this is how we write the Gauss theorem in the mathematical form if too many charges are enclosed inside a closed surface. But the question is, suppose if the charges are enclosed like this, inside this Q1, Q2, Q3, like this, certain number of charges are there. 3 charges are there, 2 are positive and 1 is negative. Outside this here, 1 negative charge is there. Here, say for example Q5, here Q6. Then in this case, mathematically, which are the charges we have to consider, means we have to consider the charges present only inside this closed surface. These charges should not be taken into consideration. So the flux should be only from those charges which are kept enclosed inside a closed surface. These charges are outside this closed surface. What do we call this closed surface as? We call this closed surface as Gaussian surface. What is meant by Gaussian surface? Gaussian surface is a closed surface of any shape, either of regular or of irregular, enclosing the charges inside it. So therefore, only the charges inside the Gaussian surface should be taken into consideration. In this case, we write the mathematical form of Gauss theorem according to the statement as like this: into Q1 plus Q2 minus Q3. No Q4, Q5 and Q6. Suppose if no charges are present inside, if only charges are present outside, then can we apply Gauss theorem or can we use Gauss theorem? No. The flux in this case becomes equal to 0, because Q equal to 0 inside the surface, no charge is considered. That's why Q equal to 0. When Q equal to 0, look here, 1 over epsilon times into total charge means Q. Come back. According to the statement, 1 over epsilon times q. What is q inside the surface? 0. So flux becomes equal to 0. If no charges are enclosed, then Gauss theorem cannot be applied. I hope that now you understood clearly about the Gauss theorem. So in order to apply the Gauss theorem, first thing is there must be charges, and these charges must be bounded by means of a surface of any shape. Then we can apply the Gauss theorem. If it is a single charge, then we write that as 1 over epsilon times q. If there are multiple charges, in that case you first find out the total charge. Okay? By finding out the total charge, then we can write the Gauss theorem in this form, mathematical form. Suppose if q1 is 1 coulomb, q2 is 4 coulomb, q5 is 2 coulomb, q2 is 3 coulomb, q3 is once again let us say 4 coulomb. What's the total charge according to this? q1 is nothing but 1 plus what is q2? q2 is 3, q1 is 1. Then plus into minus minus. What is q3 now? q3 is 4. Okay. Then what about q4? q4 is 4. Okay. What about q5? It is 2. Plus into minus minus. So what do we get now? Here plus 4 minus 4 cancels. Then what is left now? 1 plus 3, 4 minus 2 equal to 2. 2 coulombs. So total of all these is only 2 coulomb of charge. Okay. So that is how we have to find the total charge if multiple charges are present inside a closed surface. Now let us study few applications of Gauss theorem. Gauss theorem is one of the important theorem in physics because this forms one of the equation of Maxwell. Maxwell suggested few equations. He gave few equations, 4 equations. Among those 4 equations, Gauss theorem equation is also one. That is phi equal to 1 over epsilon times q. So that is why it is found to be important and it has too many applications. Let us study those applications one by one. In the first case, by using Gauss theorem, I am going to find an expression for the electric field. To find the electric field at a point outside a conducting spherical shell. This is nothing but spherical shell. Okay. Conducting means made up of metal. Shell means hard surface. Since it is a conductor, so no doubt it is found to be hard. So I consider hollow spherical shell. What is its radius means let r be the radius of this shell. Then I am going to give a charge q to this shell. That means I have charged this positively. I have charged this positively means I have removed few electrons. We know that by removing few electrons, the body becomes positively charged. I have given some coulombs of positive charge to this by removing the electrons. That positive charge gets uniformly distributed throughout the entire surface. Suppose if I give 100 coulombs of charge, 100 microcoulomb of charge, then what happens? 10 microcoulomb, 10 microcoulomb, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 like that, 10 times, 10 into 10 like that. All 100 microcoulomb is not going to concentrate at one point because it's a conductor, not insulator. So it gets distributed uniformly throughout the surface. 10, 10, 10 like that, or 5 coulomb, 5 coulomb, 5 coulomb, 5 coulomb like that 20 times. 10 coulomb, 10 coulomb, 10 coulomb like that 10 times. 10 microcoulomb, 10 microcoulomb 10 times, or 5 microcoulomb, 5 microcoulomb, 5 microcoulomb, 5 microcoulomb, 5 microcoulomb, 5 microcoulomb like that 20 times. Now what I do means I choose one point P outside the shell, and this point B at a distance R. From where? So at a distance R from the midpoint O of the shell. So that's what we have written. R is the radius of spherical shell of charge q. P is the point at a distance R from the midpoint O of the spherical shell. At this point, I need to find the electric field. So passing through this point, I imagine one sphere. Actually, this is the conducting sphere originally we have. But outside this, I imagine one more sphere which is represented in the form of dotted line. It is purely imaginary, and I call that imaginary sphere as Gaussian surface. Now, if you want to apply Gauss theorem, Gaussian surface is must, because charges must be enclosed inside the Gaussian surface. I assume the entire charge Q given to the sphere to be concentrated at the center. Though the charges are distributed on the surface of the sphere, we know that no charge is going to reside inside the conductor. No charge will reside inside the conductor. It is zero. Charges will reside only on the outer surface of the conductor. But for calculation purpose or for mathematical reason, I assume the entire charge to be located where? At the point O. Now, due to this charge, what's the electric field at the point P? Find it out. On this Gaussian surface, I imagine one small area whose magnitude is delta S, small elemental area. At this point, once again, let us consider one area vector. If this is the area, then I am going to imagine the area vector like this. Area vector should be drawn in the outward direction. So, delta S, vector delta S is the area vector. Here area vector and electric field are parallel to each other. Therefore, theta becomes equal to 0 degree, which is the angle between delta S and E. So, let us write first the flux coming out through this area. Electric flux through the area delta S is given by delta phi. Delta small area, therefore small flux. Only through this area I consider flux. Delta phi, which is equal to E into delta S into cos theta, which is nothing but E into delta S into cos 0, because theta is 0. So this is E into delta S. So this is the flux that is coming out. Now what will be the electric field at some other point on the Gaussian surface? Say for example at this point, the electric field is once again E. At this point it is E. Again at this point it is E. Again at this point it is E. The magnitude of the electric field is not going to change, because from the center of the shell, the distance at any point on the shell remains same. What is that distance? It is nothing but equal to R. Again R. Since the distance at any point on the spherical shell remains to be same, the electric field E is also same. Magnitude of the electric field. It is almost like a spherical symmetry. Electric field, by symmetry, electric field is constant. What type of symmetry it is? It is spherical, because we have taken spherical shell. So, I want to find now the total electric field due to the entire spherical shell. For that, what I do? I imagine one more area here. What is the magnitude of the area? Delta S. I imagine one more area here. Magnitude of this area once again, delta S. Area vector direction is along the direction of electric field. Here, area vector direction is along the direction of electric field. Again, if you imagine one more area vector direction is all along the direction of electric field. So, total electric flux through the entire Gaussian surface, what I do now? I am going to add up the flux coming out from all these areas. So, through this delta phi, I can imagine too many areas like this on the entire Gaussian surface. So delta phi plus delta phi plus delta phi, delta phi, delta phi, delta phi, plus, go on adding, delta phi plus delta phi plus delta phi plus delta phi. So if I do so, then what do I get? Total electric flux, it is given by phi equal to sigma delta phi. Sigma refers to total, or else I can use integration sign also, but here I use summation sign. So this is nothing but sigma. Then what is delta phi now? Delta phi is nothing but E into delta S. Now phi equal to, electric field is constant, I take it outside, summation delta S. That means you have to add all small areas. Delta S is the magnitude of only one elemental area. I imagine too many areas. Now add the magnitude of all the areas, delta S plus delta S plus delta S plus delta S. If I add, then what do I get? I get the total area of the entire Gaussian surface. What is the total area of the entire Gaussian surface? Gaussian surface is considered to be spherical. Therefore, total area of Gaussian surface is nothing but the area of the sphere. So, but sigma delta S can be written as equal to 4 pi r square, area of the sphere. I am considering the area of Gaussian surface, not the shell, because we have taken the area on the Gaussian surface, not on the shell. So, what is the radius of this entire Gaussian surface? From ear to ear, it is nothing but r. I already told you, this is also r. This is also r. So, 4 pi r square, which is nothing but area of Gaussian surface. Okay. Now, what happens to this equation now? This equation now becomes, this equation becomes now flux equation, phi equal to E into 4 pi r square. So far we have not made use of Gauss theorem, we have not applied Gauss theorem. What we have done, step by step, if you go, first we found out the flux through the small area, then we extended the flux to the entire Gaussian surface by imagining the entire Gaussian surface to be made up of number of small areas like this. So, phi equal to E into 4 pi r square, this is the total flux coming out from the entire Gaussian surface due to the charge Q kept inside the spherical shell. Remember, we are finding the electric field at the point P due to the charge Q. Once again, I am stressing on this point, no charge will reside inside the conductor. For calculation purpose, I assume the charge to be kept at the center O. All charges will be on the outer surface of the spherical shell. According to Gauss theorem now, what do we get? According to Gauss theorem, total flux phi should be equal to 1 over epsilon times the total charge. Now you call this as equation 1 and this as equation 2. Compare these two equations. If you compare these two equations, so comparing 1 and 2, what do we get? Comparing 1 and 2, we get now E into 4 pi r square is equal to 1 over epsilon times Q, that means Q divided by epsilon naught. 1 into Q is Q divided by epsilon naught. What do I need? I need to find the electric field at the point P, which remains to be same at any point on the Gaussian surface. So finally now we have electric field at the point P given by E equal to, cross multiply this entire thing to this side, 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught Q divided by r square. So this is the expression for the electric field at the point P due to a charged spherical shell. In vector form, I can write this like this. In vector form, all that I need to do is, I have to give the direction to the right hand side. On the left hand side, I made it as a vector by putting arrow. So 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught Q by r square. What do you do to Convert this into a vector quantity. Simply introduce one unit vector. What is the unit vector you are going to introduce? You can introduce any unit vector. Say for example, here I am going to introduce the unit vector n cap. What is n cap? It represents the direction, unit vector which gives the direction of electric field. Then here in this figure, what should be the direction of unit vector? The unit vector direction should be all along the direction of electric field. So if electric field is directed outwards, then unit vector is also directed outwards along the direction of electric field. So instead of n cap, you can also use r cap. If I mind, I can use r cap also. Only thing is its magnitude is equal to 1. Suppose if I choose the point P inside the shell, instead of considering outside the shell, if P is inside the shell, then what will be the electric field? Let us write one simple diagram corresponding to this. Just I am going to write, this is the spherical shell and this is nothing but the Gaussian surface. Initially the point P was here. Now I choose the point P inside, elsewhere, either here or here, elsewhere you can choose. Here also I can find the electric field not only at this point, I can find at this point, I can also find the field at this point. At all the points electric field remains to be same by symmetry. So if P is inside the shell, then Q is equal to 0. No charge will reside inside the shell. All the charges will be on the surface, outer surface of the shell. So when Q equal to 0 inside the shell, then what is the electric field at the point P? Electric field at the point P is found to be equal to 0. Look here, E equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught. Okay, 0 divided by R square. So 0 multiplied by anything is equal to 0. No electric field exists inside the conductor. This is how we can also prove mathematically that electric field do not exist inside the conductor.